Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello everybody at home and welcome to Houselights, House of Cuarón, specifically Alfonso Cuarón, as we continue our deep dive into the directorial works of this Mexican filmmaker, this visionary, this import of import. He is someone that we've had a great time analyzing over the past couple of weeks, and tonight we are talking about Children of Men that came out in 2006. And Darren, as you were telling us earlier before we started this conversation, even though this was a critically acclaimed film, and this was, I think, in the top 250 movies that you should see before you die, those kind of thing, like top 250 on Letterboxd for narrative films, it didn't make a lot of money. Not a lot of people saw it. But tonight, hopefully you guys have seen it. And we have seen it in preparation for this conversation. And I cannot wait to talk about it. I am your co-host, Tristan Riddell, and with me as always is Darren, Dr. Sci-Fi, Moser himself, and John Mills. How are you two doing tonight?
I'm doing fine. Thank you. Listen, this is definitely going to be an interesting discussion because I had a strange epiphany while I was watching it, which, gets back to some other stuff, but we'll get there. I am looking forward to discussing this, especially as I know Darren has his own insights on everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's set in 2027. We're a little closer to 2027 than when this movie was made, both chronologically and socially. So, that was an interesting watch. Like some movies that you watch after you become a parent and you get a different vibe because you have kids now. I'd say this one also falls into that, like V for Vendetta or other kind of uprising-ish films where, it's a lot to take in. A lot of people die in this movie, Tristan. A lot of people die.
Yeah, when I saw this in 2006, I saw this in theaters, and when you walk out of it, you're like, man, I hope we can avoid that. I hope that doesn't happen. And then you watch it today in 2023 and you're like, oh God, that's going to happen.
It's like watching Future Imperfect from Deep Space Nine, where they go back in time to the 90s and it's like sanctuary districts. And you're like, yeah, because those aren't going to happen. Yeah.
So John, when was the first time you saw this movie?
I'm pretty sure I saw it on disc. In years past. I don't know specifically what year, but I'd seen different stuff online, talking up, reaction to the editing and, the sort of dystopian aspects of it. And it had gotten a lot of positive press, where I was looking at it. And so I had an interest and I wound up watching it. And I immediately, you can't watch this film and not immediately respect the hell out of what Cuarón and his team pull off with a lot of things, making it look like continuous shots to sustain the suspense, making it, with the way they shot it, look more documentary in its feel than anything else. So right off the bat, it garners a lot of goodwill because regardless of anything else, you're looking at it and you're like, this is, when you're talking about craft, this is a team that absolutely has complete command of their craft, whether it's how they choose to use CG, whether it's how they choose to edit, whether it's the music they choose. Everything has such intent behind it that that you've watched something special come together, divorcing it from anything else, just in terms of the technical wizardry necessary to make something like this happen. Like you just sort of, at the end of it, just baseline impressed that you saw such care go into the creation of something, because even by 2006, we were sort of, becoming accustomed to the slapdash CG blockbuster already by that point. And so this comes out and it's like, oh, that was refreshing. Look, some people knew how to use the tools that were laid before them. Isn't that great?
Yeah, this is the kind of CG where it's replacing backgrounds and enhancing like skylines, and you don't notice it nearly as much because it is setting it in this future dystopian world. But so I mean, I'm sure this movie is packed full of effect shots, but if you had to point them out, it'd be much more difficult. And that is, like John said, using the tools well.
Darren, when was the first time you saw this?
I probably saw it in theaters. It's hard to recall, but around this time I would have been still in school and living with a bunch of film majors. So we probably all went and saw the trailer and got together. But I don't think I've probably seen it once more since then. I don't own it. I might have rented it or seen it in Blockbuster. But like I've said, it's a beautiful film as far as what it makes you feel, what it visually puts on the screen, the story it tells. But it is very depressing. It is very like there's not a lot of hope in there. But like Clive Owen's feeling. But so I was kind of like, okay, let's get, I'm going to have a bowl of ice cream. I'm going to have some happy thoughts, and we're going to pop in Children of Men. And but I am looking forward to discussing it with you too, and all the long shots. Like we're going to have this long podcast in one take, unedited, just like the movies.
Yes. Well, let's just go right into it, because I feel like Children of Men is most famous for that sequence, for the battle sequence in the refugee in the refugee district. I think it's a it's over 7 minutes of a continuous shot. I mean, a simulated continuous shot, because film buffs know that it's linked together through camera and editing trickery, but it's still incredibly impressive. Now, John, what do you think that brings? Do you think that was unnecessary to have a 7 minute long simulated shot? What do you think it brought to the film? Did you think it added suspense? Or did you think it was just showing off?
No, I think it definitely serves the build of tension and showing how oppressive it is in that sequence, because of the fact that you're used to, as an audience member, things cutting away, and it gives you sort of a sense of relief. You're switching perspective, you're switching who you're with, you're switching, and you can sort of intellectually distance yourself. I think it's a much more visceral way to have you go through a situation like that. So it definitely winds up when, for instance, everything quiets down and they're walking out with the baby. It's jarring in a completely different way, because the way that's sort of more traditionally handled is cut, and they walk out of a room, and cut to somebody looking a certain way, and cut to them walking out. Whereas this is going along, and you're like, because the momentum has never shifted, in the sense that you don't get that relief cut, you wind up still tense through the whole thing. It importantly gives that sense of they're not out of danger. A lot of movies would have punched out at that point and been like, look, we're going to be okay, sort of thing. Whereas this is like, no, this is still a very active, dangerous situation that they're in. And because it never looks away from that sort of, continuous move, that allows that tension to continually transfer over. It's sort of like what Zimmer did with the Joker's theme in The Dark Knight, where it's a note that never resolves itself. It kind of does when things shift, but like the note itself never comes to an appropriate end. And so you're just always like, what's happening? What's going on? It just instantly makes you unsettled.
And Ludwig Göransson took that to the extreme with Oppenheimer.
Yes.
took what Zimmer did and just ran with it.
Stood on the shoulder of giants there.
Darren, so you mentioned the CG earlier on. You talked about like CG replacement and everything like that. And I feel like, before I ask you the question, I feel like Alfonso Cuarón is a minimalist when it comes to CG. Like he wants to use a minimal amount of CG, like when
in camera where possible,
in camera where possible, and he completely abandons that with the next movie, Gravity. But with Prisoner of Azkaban, like it was filled with CG, but at the same time, he was just like, where can we go practical? What can we do that's real in camera and everything like that? When you were watching Children of Men this time, due to the age, and this isn't a criticism of the film, really. It's really just kind of like where we are today in 2023 as of this recording. Did you find some of the CGI distracting, or did you feel like it aged well?
No, I think it aged particularly well. I want to go back and rewatch. I saw a behind the scenes that was talking about the road ambush scene, and I'm pretty sure there's no top in that car. Like they literally had the top removed of the car, and so they had their camera come in and crane up and down and do all the movements, and then they digitally added the roof of the car later to accomplish a shot.
It was
something like that.
The camera was actually a part of the roof.
That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah,
and it's they modified the interior. For all of you who are listening who haven't seen the behind the scenes of Children of Men, you absolutely should, because the ambush scene is a technical feat in itself. I mean, everybody talks about the battle scene because it's over 7 minutes long of a simulated oneer, but the ambush scene is insane craftsmanship,
which is still really long,
which is still a very long take. But once you see where the camera is inside the car, and it's a small car filled with 5 people, and the camera is moving, it's not just rotating around, it's actually moving back and forth as well. And so these actors, while saying their lines, emoting, reacting, when the camera is not on them, they're throwing themselves backwards in the car, in the seats, so that the camera can move around them. And then when the camera is about to get on them, they throw their seat back up, and they all have to do this while emoting. And it's just
it's a choreographed dance.
It's a choreographed dance. Thank you, Darren. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, like you said, Tristan, I like the road ambush better. The finale, the battle is amazing, and it's kind of the emotional climax of the movie, so I think it gets more of the praise. But I think what they pull off with the road ambush is way more interesting, and you're just, because it's kind of the first time things go sideways. Like you have the explosion and on the cafe and other things are going on, but like that's where literally stuff's hitting the fan and it's going really bad really fast. So yeah,
and we lose Julianne Moore's character.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I guess she's not going to be in the rest of the movie, and you're like, oh my gosh.
It almost felt like I know this is an extreme example, but Drew Barrymore in Scream. You're right. Like all the posters and the trailers and everything like that shows her, and she's just killed at the beginning. No, Julianne Moore is not at the beginning, but still, you think she's going to be a major part of the movie.
There was another moment where I felt more tension than in previous watches, even though I know it wasn't going to happen. But when Michael Caine and Clive Owen are just shooting the breeze as they're uncovering the secret turn off the road, I know no one's going to come around the corner, but I'm like petrified that like they're taking their sweet time. And this is not the type of country where you take your time revealing the path to the Batcave. You got to get in real fast, cover it back up because you don't want to be discovered. And obviously that is what happens. But I'm like, wow, why do I feel so much tension in this like exposition dump chat because they're just taking too long.
John, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
With this movie, one of my favorite things, and I'm not prepping this so that you say it's your favorite thing, but one of my favorite things was the perspective of this movie, the perspective of Clive Owen's character Theo. Mm-hmm. Every single thing in this movie, apart from maybe one moment, is told from Theo's perspective, visually and cinematically. That was one thing I really, really enjoyed. I saw this with a buddy of mine, and as we were walking out, he asked me what's the thing that you like most about the movie. I said, it was like, oh, it's completely told from Theo's perspective. Like we only know what he knows. We only see what he sees. We only hear what he sees. Or only hear what he hears. And my buddy was just like, oh, damn, you're right. That changed my whole perspective on stuff. But what did you think about that implementation of that perspective? Do you think it added to the documentary feel, or did you feel like we were missing out on something? What did you think of that whole perspective of Theo's This being Theo's movie and the audience being along for the ride.
Well, here comes the groaner reveal that I hinted at in the beginning part, right?
Ooh, okay.
Is what I realized. Well, first and foremost, to speak to that point, I think it's very necessary, especially when you have this sort of like dystopian fantasy that's going on, is it shrinks the world to a believable level, right? Because all of the extra stuff that they give you in movies and stuff, again, it's a distancing thing, whether it intends to or not. But all of that world building stuff is fine, but it makes it much more experiential, much more relatable, much more understandable if you have it where all you're getting is a singular perspective the way you'd have it in that situation. Allows you to graft yourself onto that main character a lot more fluidly, I guess, and get, basically build that necessary connection with the protagonist. But while I was watching it, what I realized, what really tickles me about it is the fact that what I was reminded of were films like, honestly, Soylent Green and The Omega Man, and even to an extent Logan's Run, those sort of dystopian future things. Like, this is part of the film cycle. And I'm like, well, was this about the right time for this to show back up? I'm like, yeah. This is about that. And the thing is, the world building that's done is not too far off from Soylent Green, which is a terribly underrated film. It's definitely a product of its time, but a lot of people just know the punchline and they forget that there's a real impetus. The book that Soylent Green's based on is garbage, so don't read it. But it made it kind of a strange experience this time because I didn't really see it in that light the first time I watched it. But I think that is also a necessary element of that apocalyptic sci-fi sort of thing for it to work the way that this one does. You need to have that limited worldview so that you're much more in the moment, so that you feel the confusion, dismay, and struggle of the character to try to make sense of everything that's going on.
So, did you feel like this movie had too much exposition, not enough exposition? Do you feel like it had just the right? What do you think?
No, I don't think it had too much. Not by a long shot. The odd thing, and I think this has more to do with the sort of like the sustained tension, is the movie itself is not what I would classify as a long movie, but
this is a tight hour 45.
Yeah, but it wears you out in such a way that it feels like you were there for longer than that, which is both a good thing in the sense that like you feel like you've really been through it, but is unfortunate in the sense that it's a little bit disorienting because you are left with some of those disconnected, like there are some things I would have actually liked to hear fleshed out a little bit more in
like
some,
what?
like sort of like a how did we get here sort of thing. Would have been nice to have, because Jasper is obviously the older character, and he does that. He hints at like sort of the before times sort of thing. But I would have wanted, I don't know where I'd place it. I don't know if it's really a tangible sort of thing, but it's, and I'm not knocking the film because of it. I'm just saying like, it's a disorienting thing because the film feels longer than it is.
It does, yeah.
So that's just what's weird. And the thing is, maybe I just want more time with Jasper because I really loved him as a character. It was fun to see Michael Caine. This is one of those performances from Caine where you can tell he's having as much fun with it as anybody else is. This isn't Michael Caine showing up and saying, "Bloody good, thanks for the paycheck. I'll show myself out." This is Michael Caine showing up and saying, "Oh, this is interesting. I can do something," because I think he based his character on John Lennon, who he knew personally, and so like that's the inspiration for the character. So, in a sense, I think that gives Jasper even more of a, like, I didn't know John Lennon, but if that's sort of who John Lennon was that Michael Caine knew, I'm like, oh, that guy was actually a lot more chill than I thought he was.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Caine as Jasper was an absolute treat. Every single time. It's interesting because you want to spend more time with him, but at this, with that in mind, though, it kind of is reminiscent of Clive Owen talking with Jasper, where Jasper says, "You could always just move in with us," but then Theo says, "Yeah, but then I would have nothing to look forward to." And that's how I kind of feel about Jasper's character, where he's in it just enough for you to really love the interactions.
You're sad he's gone when he's
you're
gone.
sad he's gone, but you weren't inundated with him. And one of the, like, you know, I mentioned before about the perspectives of Leo. The only thing that kind of deviates away from that is when we see Jasper go into his own home and he brings out the quietus. And
it's like, but that's it. That's the only scene I can think of that's just not Clive Owen.
And it's a oneer where we still see Clive Owen in the shot. Like, he starts the shot and Clive Owen drives off and the camera tracks back. And so it's not like it's completely void. It's not like we're cutting to a different location at a different time. He was still just there. And even when we see Jasper die, it's from Theo's perspective from the woods. And I love that Jasper went out like a jackass. He said he's like I'm gonna, you know, it's like if I'm gonna go down, I'm, you know, like I'm gonna go down as a smartass. And it's so true to the character. Now, Darren, what did you think of the characterizations? Because we have a lot of unique people here. We have Theo, we have Julian, we have Chiwetel Ejiofor as Luke, you know, Michael Caine's Jasper, we have Miriam, we have Key, we got Charlie Hunnam as the freaking bastard Patrick. We got so many different types of people here. Like, what did you think about this mismatch of people and the people who played them?
Yeah, I mean, it was also interesting because I think if there's anything that dates it, and it's not in a bad way, but it's who was kind of popular in 2006. Like, this feels like an 2006 movie, not because of the CG or even the story. It's kind of who is the lead in it, because these are all kind of like, they were very popular. You could see them in this level budget of this level type of movie in 2006. It makes total sense. But I mean, you want to talk, we've talked a lot about protagonist confusion. There is no protagonist confusion in this movie. You know whose story it is. And I know we touched on like that perspective, especially kind of the documentarian style, and how that really just draws you in. But as far as the other characters, I love how they're not safe. Like, many of them, I think almost all of them, die throughout the course of this story. And so that makes you start to value. I think once Julianne Moore dies, you're like, oh, it's going to be that kind of a movie where anybody could die for apparently no reason, because that's life in this crazy world. So you start to be like, oh no, Jasper, no, because you know that's coming, because it's like, well, who's the one he's made most of a connection with? Leaving to Theo's death at the very end.
Well, just spoilers, but just thinking of the fact that one of the world building things that I enjoy is there are little touches that make it feel more rooted in some of, you know, even the little touches that we see in the real world, because naming the suicide kits that they're sending to people quietus, I'm like, that exactly sounds like some jackass sitting in a room being like, oh, it's a suicide kit. Hey, like Hamlet, quietus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's do that. Oh yeah, high fives all around, guys. And it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, like that's just such a, it's just such like a middle finger sort of thing.
I do want to praise it for how it builds this future world. It dodges a lot of the cringy tropes you get of creating false futures. Like, there's no slang term for the refugees. They're just refugees. Or
they called them Fugees.
I thought
which
that
wasn't
was
just a band.
Actually a thing. Okay. Maybe I was thinking. I thought that was,
I mean,
like something that was actually.
You could have used any other example and would have been right. But you chose the one slang that came up with.
Well, okay. Well, then I will say though that Fuji felt so natural that it didn't pull me out. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
We've all seen these future movies where they're like, oh yeah, and then we're gonna go get the stims and go over to the rollbacks, and it's like, what, you're making up stuff. You're throwing things at the screen.
And this was in the way back, and this is all just
Yeah.
shale.
Oh gosh, it's so shale. I hate you. But
Although
no.
I will say, as having teenage kids, that the slang terms that are coming and going with alarming rapidity now, it's we might have to reassess this because it's
I agree with
crazy.
That. But the problem with nicknames and slang is you can never get it right. You can never, like, you're always guessing, and society doesn't evolve like that, and so we have no context, so it doesn't fit. But
I mean, I think I think you really hit it, because one thing that I really focus on is the technology,
yes.
where it's not insane.
No.
Like this came out in 2006.
Digital newspapers and street signs, and that's about it. That's as advanced as
well, I'll say the screens in their office were pretty badass. I like those. I want
that's
true.
Screens. Yeah,
that was pretty great.
And on top of that, they avoided a trope that I can't friggin' stand, is that whenever you show a screen in the future, you can see it from both sides,
which makes sense.
But it's flipped, right. And you're just like, no, I don't want people to see what I'm looking at just mirrored on the other side.
It would make HR's job a lot easier, though. So I'll just say.
And that's the thing, is that like the screens were just a little cooler, and there was more LED advertisements all over town.
It's
that's
like a Minority Report level of advancement. Like,
I know. I think
it was even smarter than Minority Report.
Way smarter than Minority Report. Way smarter than iRobot.
Because it wasn't throwing flying things. Once you start throwing flying things, then you've made a jump, like hover this and drone that. Yeah. And I didn't see any of that. It was like, we use bullets and guns like God intended to kill each other.
And also on top, I mean, like, you can also take a look at it in kind of like the Star Wars angle, like compared to the prequels, where technology is stagnant because of a fascist regime, where, like, things don't excel because, like your money's going to other places. Your money's not going to innovation. Your money's going to survival.
Well, and I think it's desire. Nobody has a desire to advance anything because it's hopeless. Why make the next thing?
Well, if the entire planet is dying, it would actually be. It's
actually held together a lot pretty well for 18 years of confirmed
that's the one thing I think that undercuts sort of like this. The future is so believable, because I think by year 10, like, chips are on the table. Like, it shows over at that point. If there's 10 years and no kid is born on the face of the planet, it's done. Like, you're not making it 18 years into this. Like that because the one thing that keeps anybody, even in wartime situation, from going as hog wild as we'd think sometimes, is because of that natural limiter about tomorrow, where it's like, okay, well, I cocould nuke everything today, but then there's nothing for me to rule tomorrow, right. So I won't use the nuke
or nothing
today.
For my kids. Like, kids are a major part of our psyche. It's of something better tomorrow.
I'm not saying you guys are wrong, because you make some very solid points, but like, to play devil's advocate just a little bit, because of that isolated perspective of what you're talking about, John, like, we're on one island, we're Britain. It's just like, that's it. Like, they even say, like, at the beginning, Britain soldiers on, like, everybody else has fallen, but Britain is soldiers on, because they talk about, like, if you read some of the newspaper headlines, like, Africa was nuked, like, Africa's gone.
Yeah, that's true.
And like, Russia has fallen, like, like, basically all the immigrants from Asia moved to Russia, then Russia into Europe, and that's why Britain shut down immigration. And like, there's a conversation that Julian and Theo have, where like, they haven't spoken in 20 years, but Theo says like, hey, were your parents in New York when it happened? She's like, yeah, they were. And that's all the information we got.
That's you know what? That's an excellent point. I suppose then my question becomes, why the hell would Britain have survived? But it's okay. It's okay. It needs to for the movie, but that's a valid point.
It's got another year.
I think that's a valid counterpoint. But I mean, I guess my counterpoint to that is I just see everything in like there is nothing to stand walls up to or for or anything by that point. I think it's just,
I think because it's a literal island, it
Yeah.
helps. And also because, I mean, they ruled one of the longest running empires of all time. You know, maybe they have a cheat code. I don't know.
well, they didn't have enough of a cheat code to have it be the BBC that's broadcasting. So, who knows?
That's true. Oh man, I
They
hated
did have
that
BBC.
No, it was BCC.
BCC.
Oh, I missed that.
Because they didn't want
totally-
to pay for the copyright. And it's just, I just wish they would have just
come on.
pay the extra money for God's sake.
Jeez.
That's like when somebody's
Make it
drinking and it's a can of
BBNC.
cola.
Put an ampersand in
It's a
there.
can
or
of
something.
Sprit.
Yes, yes. Oh no! And the thing is, that's one of those shots where like I see BCC and I'm like, don't pay attention to it. Don't pay attention to it. Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy.
CCN. Like
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know that I'm totally going in a different direction, but like we talked about quietus earlier. One of my favorite lines is from Jasper when he's like, yeah, they're handing out quietus and antidepressants with rations, but yet ganja is still illegal.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
That is absurd, but also
well,
something that would happen.
That speaks really truly to another one of the things that I think is great about Jasper's character is he really embodies that old school all governments suck sort of attitude.
A rebel before the war, kind of.
Well, yeah, like he like Jasper is the type of character that goes, and I know I keep shining on Jasper here, but like Jasper is that kind of character that reminds you, especially with his age, that there's always been something to hate about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And he's sort of hit that point where he's like, yeah, world's on fire, always has been, sort of thing. Like he's hit that point where he's just comfortable with it. He's like, yeah, run out of steam. It was bound to happen, sort of thing. And it's in contrast to Theo, who's going through just because paying any attention to it would cost too much. When he's forced to pay attention to it is when he has to leave work. He's like, it's affecting me a lot more than I thought. I have to go. But he cites the one thing that his boss knows is going to let him go, right? About the death of Diego. He doesn't come in and say, I almost got bombed to death today.
Right?
Could I take a mental health day? He's like, no, I think baby Diego's affecting me. And the boss is like, well, yes, of course, go. You get the sense in that moment that like almost dying in your coffee shop being bombed is not a reason to go home anymore. And it's like, yeah, it happens.
You know what? That's okay. All right. I think that's a really good perspective. It's hilarious and sad, but I think that's a really good perspective on it because that's something that always bugged me where I'm just like, why would you have the ultimate excuse? Like you saw a woman hold her own arm in front of you. I think you can go home today. But he's like, nah, I'm sad from baby Diego, the wanker.
Yes.
No, well, and it's like social. It's like that's the socially acceptable thing to be upset about versus the actual like there was a bombing today, but that's not socially acceptable to complain.
Speaking of the coffee shop bombing thing, I think that also shows some smart editing, creative choices because it cuts off right as she's walking out, and we're still disoriented, and then it just picks up, and we're like, wait. We didn't get that lingering scene of him walking through the devastation with a dazed look and the ringing in his ears and all of that type of stuff. I think it winds up underscoring the fact that it's like, this is a jarring, traumatic thing, but it's just a thing that happens because then he's just going to work. And
or
it's
you
like,
could look at it
it's an interesting
as,
choice.
Because it's his perspective, he's already blacked it out. Like we don't get to see the aftermath because he's already suppressed that. I mean, maybe it's reading a little much into it, but just overall, I think they really nail the art of background exposition because it is because you're coupling it with the documentary style. There's a couple of like pans over the wall covered in newspaper clippings that are all very poignant to the plot. But you know what? Heck, if Doc Brown can pan over clocks at the very beginning, of Back to the Future, like, no, I think this one, and like you guys said, like the whole New York thing, and they left us wanting more, which is much better.
They didn't spoon feed us.
Yeah.
No, and we didn't cut to like, and now in the Situation Room with the president, he's going to talk about some peace treaty with the Middle East. That has nothing to do with this plot. But we just needed to have more knowledge of what is the government. Like, no, we don't need to know that. We don't need to know by like you said, keeping it a smaller story. I mean, it's a big day for this guy. It's a very, I wouldn't say small story, but it's a very tight local radius for what is going on. Almost like an episode of 24, really. It kind of felt like that. Like, today's the day it all went bad.
Yeah, it only takes place over the course of like 3 days or
it's
something
like barely
like that.
any time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I love stories like that happen really tight. And it was I love it when the exposition is in the air. I love when it's not just like, and this happened, then this happened, then this happened. And I think Alfonso Cuarón even talked about that in interviews about how, like I don't want to be held hostage by exposition. I don't want it. I want people to think about it. I don't want to spoon feed it to the audience. It's something like I think he called it like when you have too much exposition, it's like having lazy readers go to the cinema or something to that effect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. We don't need to have a 5-point PowerPoint presentation of what happened in New York.
With the scrolling text after the bombs fell and
No.
no women. That would have been terrible. Oh my gosh. That
this
horrible.
does have the very traditional sort of dystopian fantasy
News
opening
clip.
with a news clip in the
Yeah,
beginning
you're right.
to set the stage for everything, but it's specifically about the one story as opposed to like what you're talking about when you open with like I Am Legend,
Right.
where it's like, we're going to
Or
tell you
Mad
the
Max,
entire history of this
anything
whole
like
thing
that,
that
yeah.
happened and the thing of blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, we encounter it the way he encounters it in his day, which is going to get a cup of coffee. Everybody's watching the stuff. And he's like, yeah, okay, I just want my coffee and go, please.
Well, and again, this is, like we said, it's 3 days, but in these 3 days, you have the death of baby Diego to the uprising. Like they mentioned like, oh, the uprising's happening. They haven't even seen the kid and they're uprising already. So those 3 days is like a pivotal moment in the history of Britain.
This is also what sets apart this in terms of like that dystopian genre is you roll the dice on whether you find out that baby Diego was an imposter and the real one had died years before. Like a lot of times with these sorts of movies, you find out that baby Diego, like that character, that conceit is hidden away somewhere. And you find out that it's all been a lie to keep people pacified, because so long as baby Diego was alive, people would be happy with it. Again, getting back to
Right.
the Soylent Green sort of thing. So long as you don't know how the sausage is made, you'll eat the sausage sort of thing. And so I'm paying the movie a great compliment in the fact that the mission that the protagonist goes on is one that is worthwhile, with no detour to find out that there's some sort of like hidden subterfuge piece to what we saw earlier. Like it's a very linear story. We don't have these twists and turns through conspiracy land or anything like that.
Yeah. It was. I don't think it was needed. I think we learned only what we needed to learn from Theo's perspective, from Chulcha Ejiofor's character, and he like an uprising is going to happen. Like that's what he was pushing for. He wanted the uprising to happen, and Julian didn't, and she was killed for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all we needed to know.
Well, yeah, and those twists, because not only did I watch this, but I watched there's a couple of YouTube channels that do commentary or not commentary, but review of millennials that have never seen X, which there's a lot of millennials that have never seen certain movies, but that twist of like when you realize that the hijacking on the road was like planned by the same group that rescued them, and you're like, oh dang, we are in trouble, like we are not safe. Like that is the most disconcerting part of almost the whole movie, of like who you thought was the refuge is really like your days are numbered at that point.
And what a scene when they're trying to escape the farm, and they're trying to jumpstart the car. I mean, the tension
so
just
tense.
oh my gosh, it's so slow, but yet so tense at the same time. But it's so believable because he gets enough momentum to go down the hill, so it's easy for a heavy car to go down the hill, but it takes a lot of time for people to run down the hill.
Except for that one dude, he was booking it. He was just like.
And if he disobeyed our orders, Clive Owen would have been gone. But I thought it was poetic justice that Theo pushed out the car door on him again, like he did when he was on the motorcycle. I thought that was perfect. It was poetic, and he hits that haystack hard. Like, I kind of want to know how they did that. Because it looked like Charlie Hunnam, but I severely doubt it was. Like who hit the haystack.
No,
but anyway, that's
Patrick.
Yeah. But yeah, like with that scene, it's so great, and I love how smart Theo was with like taking out the car parts to make sure that they can't be followed by every car. And I love how in that moment he's pushing the car, and the two guards are there, and you're like, in the audience is like, wait, they're there. What are you doing? What are you doing? Like they're right in front of you, and all of them know like it's now or never. Either we do it now or it's not.
There's not going to be let's just back up into the garage and wait 30 minutes. Like, no, you got to strike, because once they know you're trying to escape, it's over. You have the element of surprise, and once you lose that, it's much harder.
Exactly. And that actually leads me to another thing, where earlier in the movie we hear Chiwetel Ejiofor's character say, don't use that car, that needs to be jump started. That was one thing I really liked about this movie, is that nothing came out of nowhere.
Right.
This everything was thought out. Everything, there was no, Chekhov's gun was utilized very properly for this movie. And
they talked about getting on a boat, and they get on a boat at the end. It's not like, why are we on a boat at the end? Like, no, we talked about that. We talked about everything.
And also, like, it took me a couple of watches to realize this, but one of the, because it was always a question of how on earth did they find Jasper's hideout? But at the beginning of the film, and you don't know this until you rewatch it, one of the fishes was following Theo at the beginning of the film when he was on the bus going to Jasper's. So they knew where he was going, and that's how they were able to find him. The movie is just filled with stuff like that. And I really appreciate how thought out everything is. And I think, to bring it back to Cuarón, because this is a director-based podcast, like when you look at all of the one-shots that he loves, which we saw in previous movies like Prisoner of Azkaban and Great Expectations, you have to plan this out. With Children of Men, it took days upon days, and it took 5 hours to reset a shot for the battle sequence. And I think only one time were they able to do all of it. Like only one take was usable for like one of the battle shots. And it just goes to show that he is an expert craftsman of putting everything on screen. It's just like he has to plan for the day, he has to plan for the shot, and he plans for the story.
Well, don't disagree with a single thing. I agree with all of that. What strikes me with Children of Men is I see Cuarón become the director I know him to be now. Whereas with the three we looked at previously, he's warming up. And in a sense, I think that we all owe Prisoner of Azkaban a lot of thanks, because I think that's what unlocks the ability and gives him the comfort to learn how to use all of those tools, because pre-Prisoner of Azkaban, I do not see the director who pulls this off. After Prisoner of Azkaban, I see a guy who sat there and paid really close attention to how you set this stuff up and said, okay, I know what I'm going to do with this. And I think it's huge to make that leap, because I can trace now with the movies that we looked at, I don't see his first two movies that we looked at leading to this per se. Visually, yes. I'm visually, yes. Performance, all of those sorts of things. But then Prisoner of Azkaban is where you see somebody come in and say, oh, cool. Look what I can do. Okay. And then he comes to it and he says, all right, well, I don't want to be in the wizarding world now. I want to be in the real world. How do I make this work? And it's like, I think it's revelatory. I think Children of Men, with the technical wizardry and the solid story and performances, my biggest question I'm left with at the end of it is why it didn't connect with audiences enough to become. Now, I would never see this becoming a blockbuster. This isn't going to be like an $850 million, but I don't understand why it didn't at least double its budget, sort of thing. Like, this is exactly the sort of thing that should have found an enduring sci-fi audience at the very least. I don't remember enough about the landscape of when it was released. Maybe there's some sort of explanation there.
I took a look at movies that came out in 2006 because
this was Christmas Day in 2006.
This was Christmas Day in 2006?
December 25th in 2006, yeah.
Which means they knew that they were going for awards with it. I mean, we all know the Christmas Day release is one of two things. We think we can make a lot of money off of families, or we're going to get Oscars.
And you're past the like Lord of the Rings era. Like, that's done by 2006.
Earlier this year, Departed and Prestige came out.
Okay. Yeah.
But you also have, the top 10 films of 2006. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest. Was that the second or the third one? I don't remember.
Who gives a shit?
I don't know.
Da Vinci Code, Ice Age: The Meltdown, Casino Royale is in the mix.
Ooh.
Night at the Museum, Cars, X-Men: The Last Stand, Mission Impossible 3, Superman Returns, and Happy Feet. That's not a Children of Men friendly
for Children of
landscape
Men.
Right there.
No, it's not. It's not at all. Yeah.
It was nominated for 3 Academy Awards, adapted screenplay, cinematography, and editing, and did not win any of them.
Who won for cinematography that year? Do you have it handy?
Let's see.
Or can you look that up while we're talking here? One thing that Darren, while you're looking that up, one thing I do want to okay, I'm not even going to pretend that I'm going to ask you that question again. I'm going to cut this out, and then you're just going to know automatically. I was going to do a whole thing about Danny Houston. Okay, you're muted now. You're muted.
You are.
Ready.
Okay. Who won for best cinematography? Do you know that?
Pan's Labyrinth. So,
oh god, dang it!
Okay,
that did not deserve that. Screw that.
No, but I get why. It's not one of those
Pan's
ones
Labyrinth,
where like
Black Dahlia, Children of Men, The Illusionist, and The Prestige.
The Illusionist.
Yeah, which was it that kind of like The Prestige light? Like, I can't remember that one.
It's not as bad as people think it is.
It's not as good as you're trying to portray either.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it's good. It's just like people. If Prestige
it's
wasn't
not
around,
terrible. That's the tagline for The Illusionist. Is in quotes. It's not terrible.
All right, I can't argue with that. I think that's pretty accurate.
Thank you.
Who won for best editing?
Because it was the wrong choice.
Oh my gosh, the editing on this is perfect. It's like, especially with, you talked about this earlier in the film, but just like when he cuts to Children of Men, the opening title. And I love that Cuarón, he has the opening title and the closing title. Like that's kind of his signature. And it kind of leads me to, there's one comment that I wanted to make, is that this movie is unflinching with its violence, but is not gratuitous with its violence. Pan's Labyrinth, gratuitous with its violence. But Children of Men, it shows you what violence actually looks like without, without shoving it in your face. Like when you see Sid get smacked in the face with a car battery, like that's what it would look like if someone got smacked in the face with a car battery, or when Jasper was shot through the hand, things like that. But we're not lingering on it.
So
for best editing, it was The Departed.
Okay. Well, it's hard to argue with Thelma Schoonmaker.
Well, I mean, of the mix, I probably would have gone with United 93, honestly, because I thought that movie is edited so well you don't even notice that there's no music in it. Like it's just it. Okay, fine. No, see, the thing is,
I haven't seen it, so I can't comment on it.
Point.
Do I think it's better than Children of Men? No, but if there's one on the list that you're going to give it to that's not Children of Men, I would have given it to United 93. Of the ones, I didn't see Blood Diamond, but I saw The Departed, I saw Babel, I saw Children of Men, and I saw United 93. Children of Men, I don't know what criteria they were using not to. I mean, awards shows are pointless anyway.
Yeah,
but whatever.
I mean, of the winners, The Departed won 4 awards and Pans won 3. So it was kind of sweeping up.
I freaking hate
that. Now I'm just curious about best adapted screenplay, and the winner was The Departed. Okay, all right, that's fair.
For the longest time, I said that Children of Men, like I was on a high with this movie, and for the longest time, I said that Children of Men was the best movie that came out in 2006. But up against Departed and Prestige, man, that's tough. That is tough because those are 3 fantastic films.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're at that point. It's closing time, and I want to know how many CGI babies are you giving this film?
That's true. I hadn't thought of that, but that totally makes sense that they at least a doll, because there's no way you can do a oneer with a real baby and hope it works out. It's like, oh, it was all good except for the last 30 seconds where the baby threw up.
Yeah. Well,
or coming out of the birth canal.
Right. Yeah.
All right, let's time it, folks. We got 1 shot.
But no, I mean, I you always pick me first, which makes me I can't judge the room.
I do always pick you first. I don't know why I do that.
That's all right.
I can pause and we can go to John.
No. I'm gonna give it a 4.
I'm gonna pause. We're gonna go to John.
Wait, I'm giving it.
I'm just messing. I'm totally messing with you.
No, I give it a 4. Again, it's a really good movie. The reason I just don't give it a 5 is maybe it's a personal reason, but just I don't own it. I don't intend to regularly watch it. It's not a fun movie. It's a beautifully made movie, but Darren's not giving it a 5. I'm giving it 4 CGI explosions.
Let me go in verse of Darren's reasoning here and say that I think in anybody else's hands, this is a 4, because I think the underlying stuff is all there. I think that other directors could do something with this script in their own way that would be interesting and worth watching. I think that there is, precedent for it in the genre. The thing that I always find uncomfortable is we've hit this phase that seems elongated because film goes in cycles. We haven't escaped from our post-apocalyptic obsession this time. Whereas by the time the late 70s were coming around, everybody was like, okay, look, I just want to go have a good time. Could we just sort of like lighten up the mood?
To come back in.
Yeah. I feel like we're a little bit trapped in a rut in that way, but that's just me. I think it's, multifactorial, different landscape, all those sorts of things. But I think that while this would be a 4 in other people's hands, it's a 5, and it gets that extra star simply because those sequences that we were talking about earlier are insane. I will gladly and with great joy and self-satisfaction award extra points for just being uneffing touchable in terms of constructing things that are this complex. You deserve extra credit for that. That's like, this is the kid coming in and instead of doing what I did with term papers, actually wrote more pages than necessary and spaced it without adding an extra 0.2 between the lines. So like, this is an undeniable tour de force, and it is revelatory because Cuarón becomes who he's going to be from that point forward right here. So yeah, this is a 5.
I'm with you, John. This is a 5-star film for me. This is a top 10 film for me. Like this is in my personal top 10. I love this movie. I think it's perfectly crafted. There's not a single thing that I would change. And this movie, I think, elevates Cuarón to the rank of master. Unlike Anakin, I think he achieved the rank of master here. And I know I'm joking, but
I hate you both for making me go first and then being like, you would be stupid.
Darren,
not give this 5.
Darren, have I ever once in our entire time doing this show together, I've always backed you stand by your convictions. Don't let us sway you. And that's why you will always
That
go
is
first
true.
when we
That's-
give these ratings.
I hate this even more.
And just so you know, I gave you the option. Even after you gave your
True.
rating, I said, we're going to pause and go to John. And you refuted me. But regardless, okay. So, but that's the thing is that like I watched this movie today. I've seen this movie a lot, but I haven't seen it for years. And I watched it today, and I cried 3 times. And I'm man enough to admit it that I cried 3 times during this film. This emotionally resonated with me, and it always does. And even though I've seen it multiple times, I'm still emotionally affected by it. And I think that's a sign of a great movie. And Cuarón is just an expert craftsman. And I am so excited to see what he does in the future after what we've seen post Children of Men. And I cannot wait until we talk about next week with his next film. Darren, what is that?
Next week, we're going high above the earth, maybe a couple more oneers with his out-of-this-world take of Gravity.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.